welcome to Side Talk. My name is Jude Thomas Dawam. Usually on Side Talk, we sit down and we talk to industry experts. We talk to people in every facet of life. We look at the industry, their challenges, their growth, and of course, the most interesting things, funny things, fun things as well. Today with me, I have, of course, a CEO of MIM, that's Money in Minutes Finance Company Limited, in the person of George Badejo Adigbenga. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you. Now, let's run quickly into the conversation of today, starting with why Money in Minutes.
Okay. So my career actually started as a criminal defense lawyer in the UK.
Okay.
So doing fintech wasn't the plan.
Yes.
Right. But it happened that there was a reform of legal aid, which is what funds criminal defense in the UK. And that made it very, very difficult. In other words, I would say crime didn't pay anymore.
Okay.
So I decided to kind of pivot into corporate law. So I joined a finance firm in the UK as the in-house lawyer. And the rest is pretty much history. That's how I ventured into doing corporate law in fintech and what then happens to be a business in Nigeria for some crazy reason.
Interesting. Now, were you not scared? Now, why I say were you not scared when Money in Minutes in Nigeria? I don't want to talk about the reason where people would say, "Are you sure?" People take loan and they disappear. What was that thing for you? Are you going to use juju to catch people?
I can tell you, everybody, including family members, warned me.
They said they swear for you.
Oh yeah, they said you're mad.
Okay.
Like there's no way. Like Nigerians don't pay is what I kept on hearing. But having done it for a very long time, we've operated in the US, we've operated in the UK. It seemed to me at the time, especially kind of figuring out how finance works and how it's an enabler for so many people. And thinking of the Nigerian economy, it was just like, it was a no-brainer that there would be people that are creditworthy in Nigeria that would do business with. So that was what kind of gave me that confidence. Coupled with, at the same time, I met the finance minister, Zainab Ahmed, at the time. I met her in Oxford University on a program, and she told me about the Global Standing Instruction, which is a piece of legislation that the government has just passed, which ensures that provided a finance firm that's regulated by CBN has got your bank verification number, right? If they don't pay, there's a way you could actually still go get your money upon that kind of instruction. So coupled with the fact that I believed that a lot of people that are creditworthy in Nigeria and that piece of legislation, that kind of gave me the confidence to take that crazy risk.
And do you still think it's crazy?
Very.
Really, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Money in Minutes has been around for like what? Since 2021?
Yes, around about.
And till 2025. Would you say it was a good thing to jump on?
Honestly,
yes.
No. Right? No, because there are two reasons why I felt it was a good idea. One is I do believe that they're creditworthy Nigerians. I have no problems with that. There are really genuinely good people in Nigeria.
Yes.
The second part is the global standing instruction. Till today, it's not live. Right? So I've got over 1.2 billion naira in bad debt from people we've borrowed money to. We've seen their bank statement. They do have money, but yet still they choose not to pay. Right? And we're doing everything possible. So in that context and with that reality, I'm thinking, perhaps I should have gone to Ghana. Perhaps I could have gone to Kenya, because I've learned a lot of lessons from doing business in Nigeria, and it's feeling to me, without the GSI, perhaps there are other geo-regions that perhaps might be more conducive.
What do you think the government could have done or they can do right now to make sure that these things and people are not taking advantage of, most especially our brothers from diaspora who want to come and start up fintechs like this and then out money? Because I noticed that what meme does is like a credit facility. It's like you check your credit limits, and if you're credit worthy, then you can take a certain amount of money. So it means that you go through the person's finances and you know that this person is credit worthy. But then, like you mentioned, they have the money and they do not want to pay. But what is the government saying about
So
that?
I think honestly, the government has already figured this out by introducing that piece of legislation,
Okay.
right? For some reason, it's not been implemented. I think the more technical challenges that's made it impossible for them to go live. So I feel the intention is there, but it's kind of, it wasn't what they thought. That is kind of my view. But the biggest problem really is education, right? It's that gap in financial literacy, right? I make this argument everywhere I go that if you think of it in terms of poverty and kind of solving the problems of poverty, finance is a key aspect of that, right? But if you take a rich man and a poor man and they both go apply for credit, and let's say the bank or finance firm is going to give that credit to them, in reality, they're most likely going to give it to the rich man for the lowest interest rate you can imagine. And then they'll give it to the poor person with the highest rate you can imagine. Why? Because the risk of lending to the poor person, which you can only define by their lack of education about finance, is the difference, right? So if we could find people understanding money, right, understanding that if someone borrows me money and I pay back on time, right, they're most likely going to want to borrow me again. In fact, every of their competitors want to borrow me again at a lower rate. It's that simple, right? And people don't understand that for some reason. There's actually nothing compelling them to even want to pay back, which is the challenge.
All right, now let's look at this. I read as well that I think over 5 billion hackers hacked a lot of these fintechs. I think it was 2022, 2023, somewhere like that. Have you experienced any of that? Has anyone ever tried to hack your system?
I'm sure they've tried, but we do have a robust control to prevent cyber attacks and stuff like that, and we have to be on top of our toes in terms of being more advanced. But I'm absolutely sure they've tried, but we've never had any kind of impact that we know of on our records.
So
Thankfully so.
thank God for that. Now, the government recently, not very recently, but I think it was 2023, thereabout, brought in the whole you can't dollar this, dollar that, you can't send in dollars, you can't pay. And you, I'm sure, most of the time you raise your in dollars.
Yeah.
How do you pay back?
In sterling. Yeah.
How do you pay back?
Well, there is the bad debt situation.
Great.
Right. And there is also, we lost circa around about £2 million from the Naira dollar realignment. Right. We brought in money when we started at 400 Naira to the dollar. Right. It's now 1,500. So you can imagine. So when we're talking about the challenges facing Nigeria, every successful nation requires investors from everywhere, right? The challenges we have with Naira at the moment is making it very difficult for us to be able to raise funds, because why in anyone's right mind as an investor want to put money into a country knowing that maybe in a year's time, when that money comes back, even though the business has been successful, it's going to be worth less than what it was when you brought it in. And that remains the biggest challenge for us.
And you still continued. You opened your office last year?
A new office.
A new
so
office
we've been in
Lekki.
existence for almost 3 years.
Yeah. And then in Lekki, you opened recently,
That's correct.
2024.
Yes, that's correct.
And this structure is still there.
Yes.
Have you been able to manage that?
Grit, to be fair, like not giving up, right? Whatever is worth doing at all is worth doing well, right? I don't believe this is going to fail, right? In fact, I say to all my team that I have a vision of what's going to happen to MIM in the next 2 years, and it's success. We just need to carry on. And, if you think of it, I talk about 1.2 billion bad debt, but the business today is a profitable business.
How is it a profitable business when you're in a 1 point something billion bad debt?
Yeah, so it's profitable because we've pivoted, we've changed our model. We've actually done what I didn't want to do coming to Nigeria, right?
Which is?
My goal work, right, is to, if you think of, it's still our mission statement, make affordable finance accessible to as many Nigerians as possible, right? And that is by giving unsecured loans, because most people do not have collateral. Most people do not have properties, but they need access to finance. But unfortunately, in order for us to survive, in the absence of GSI, Global Standard Instructions, reverted to what the banks do. Right. So anyone that borrows money now has to give us some kind of asset as collateral, unfortunately. Or we lend to people through their employer. So the employer takes the funds from their payment. That's not the way I intend to do it. That's not really impacting a lot of people. But when the government does the GSI, then we can revert back to our mission.
So has there ever been a time where you did, because at some point we heard in Nigeria, some fintechs had to go and, arrest people that collected their money.
People do it.
But have you done it?
No, we haven't.
Do you think you're going to do it?
I don't think so.
Why?
It's against our values, right?
But it's your money.
It's our money. And honestly, we get advice to say, be more aggressive, do this and do that. And what we focus on, and being a lawyer myself, and I have a team of lawyers that work for me, right? For me, it's about making sure we enter into legitimate agreements, right? And if you don't pay, we take you to court. We sue you, right? And we have no hesitation taking that kind of approach, right? We're currently not doing unsecured loans. We're not doing micro loans, which perhaps that would make it even more difficult. But when the GSI comes, we don't need to litigate them, because the money at some point would always be in the account, so we can always take
it out. All right. Now, aside the Nigerian government, the policies and other issues that you face, what are other experiences that you would say, if you had this, you would have done better?
I think the financial literacy is a big one, and that's the reason why I wrote a children's book.
Yes, I was going to get to that. Of course, I knew. I snooped on. I went on your Instagram. I saw you with a little kid, I think maybe 8, 9, about you're teaching him about the book he was reading. And that struck me, because we never learned that in school.
Yes, sir.
Right? And we were focused on just finishing school, getting a job.
Yeah.
Nobody tells you what you're supposed to do with the money that you make from that. Was that the inspiration for you, or was it the fact that MIM came in and you saw how the structure was, and that made you to write the book?
It was both, right? So for me, the penny dropped pretty much post-university, right?
Oh.
Yeah, it took a while for me to kind of piece everything together, right? And then I was fortunate to meet a lot of successful friends, right? And I found out that they knew a lot about money at a younger age, right? Which clearly played a part in where they were, right? So for me, I was like, okay, we're going to set up MIN and we're going to educate people on how money works. And we're doing that, right? But people, especially adults, I pretty much just gave up on adults. I just thought, you know what, adults, you're so set in your ways, right? And I then thought, let me write a book for children in a language they understand, about how money started, time value of money, interest rate, credit score, in a way they understand. So if you think about credit score, for example, right, for children, every child has got a friend, or not so much of a friend, that they'll never lend a toy to, right? And that's because that guy or girl never returns the toy.
Yeah,
right?
true.
Or always breaks the toy.
Yeah.
That is credit scoring, right? Lenders would lend to you if there's a record of you paying back, right? So explained in a way children will understand, is distributed across the world for free, because I'm not putting any barrier in any child establishing how money works, because I believe that's the true way to kind of eliminate or mitigate poverty.
So have you taken that book to the Ministry of Education in Nigeria? Have you tried to do that?
Yeah, I've tried to do a few stuff. For me, I don't believe the root is government. And everybody, I go to school, but I don't think the root is government. I think the private sector's got a part to play. So I'm in partnership with a few private organizations in Kenya, where I've given them the right to reprint the book, right, and distribute it for free. The condition is it has to be for free. So anyone can reproduce it without permission, but just do not sell it.
All right. So now, what the reason I said the Ministry of Education is that's where the major school is,
Yeah.
and for as long as it's free, I'm sure a lot of government schools will want to have it.
Yeah.
Have you tried to just
I
look
haven't
into that?
actually. I haven't. And I'm sure perhaps that would be a part. I just believe that things get a bit more complex when you involve government. So for me, I'm just going to take my step and do the little I can. And then maybe in the future, we may well engage government, you know.
Going to school abroad,
Yeah.
and having a life being a lawyer, and now getting into fintech after the COVID year, and understanding that there's so much to benefit from fintech. Would you say that the school system failed?
Hmm. I wouldn't say it's failed, but it's not as effective as it should, right? There's certain parts of the system, the education system that works, and there's certain aspect that is not prioritized but are important. And this is probably a legacy thing. It's just the way it's been done and it's not being changed. And I think someone needs to kind of revisit everything, right? And then kind of do a proper reform. And I don't think that is specific to Nigeria or Africa. I think it's globally, right? The same problems is in the schools in the UK and the US, where things like this are not actually taught. It's not part of the curriculum.
What's the name of your book again?
The Coin Quest.
The Coin Quest. It's an interesting name. The reason is because these books. What do you think about this? Just me, just thinking, just right now. It wasn't in this question, but replicating these books in different languages, Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo. Reason being, I've been to the north, I've been to the east, I worked in there for a long time, and now I'm in the west, and I realized that there are schools that you teach in English and they really don't get it. Like you made an illustration with the toys. That's being credit worthy, credit score, and all of that. There are ways that you can see that in Yoruba that the child will never forget. So I think that this book is going to go a long way. It just depends on how well we're willing to push it. What do you think about that?
I think
You have businesses in Nigeria, UK, and the US. How do you handle all of this? And then most recently, you're going into telecoms.
yeah.
What are you? An elephant? You don't forget?
I don't know. This is what happens when you come to an emerging country. There's a lot of problems to solve, right? Yeah, so I don't know. I think I am determined to achieve whatever I set on to do. So that keeps me going. The telco, everything actually, it's just by coincidence, right? Like you're trying to solve a problem and then you identify a different problem and you're like, okay, let's try to solve it. And like, oh, there's barriers, there's no industry there. And you're like, you know what, we could do this, right? And that's how the phone occurred. So if you think of all our loans are all online on an app, right?
Yes.
But then all the companies we've gone to onboard them so the employees can have access, most of them don't have smartphones. So it's like, how do they have access to finance when they don't have the tools to actually, be able to access it? So we then thought, okay, let's partner with some phone companies, but then they all put in their margins. And I'm like, well, it's still going to make it very expensive. So we're not really solving a problem, right? And then we thought, okay, actually, let's go to China and go make our phones.
Whoa.
And that's how 40S was actually born.
When did it come out?
So it's new. It's still being manufactured, right? So we expect it to be out by end of next.
So you don't have like a replica that
Oh, we do. We do have them. We do have replicas.
You didn't bring any in.
No, I didn't.
So I wanted to seize and show them.
Oh, right. Okay. We can arrange that.
Yeah, we can arrange that.
Or if you go to 40S on Instagram, you'll be able to find all the pictures and everything on there.
So what did it take for you to get that? How long?
Around about 6-7 months. We had to go through different manufacturers in China, but thankfully I've got friends in China, so it made it easier. But yeah, around about 6 to 7 months.
So what do you think the price margin will be on it, or it still depends on the dollars?
So the dollar is always going to play a part, right? Until Naira is stable, right? But at the moment, it's going to range around about 150,000 Naira. And if, you compare that with actually a Samsung or iPhone, you're probably talking about comparing to 800,000 Naira phone.
Oh wow. The quality.
Yeah, pretty much. So if you look at a phone that is probably costing around about 700, 800, that is the standard, the entry point, right? We then intend to kind of see exactly how the consumers react to that. Do they want even a cheaper version? Because China is whatever you want, they'll make.
Yeah,
right?
true.
So but we want to, because it's a new brand, we the reputation of that brand is very important. So we went for something very mid, not expensive, but also not too cheap.
And MIM still exists.
Thanks to God.
How do I get money from MIM if I want to get loan?
Yeah, you go onto our app. You download our app on the App Store, Money in Minutes, or you go onto our website www.moneyin minutes.ng, and then you can also download the app from the web. You register your interest, right? The moment you register, you can even have access to your credit score free of charge. So if you already know how good or bad your credit score looks like, then you apply for a loan, and by the time you start paying, we report to all the credit bureaus, right? So that we can start helping you build your credit score so you can have better rates, even better than the rates we give.
How do you know my credit score if I'm just registering?
Okay. So provided you've taken credit before,
Okay.
right? And you've taken it from a CBN regulated firm or from a firm that does report to the 3 credit bureaus, then we'd have information. And it's actually one of the biggest problems, right? A lot of people have never taken formal credit, so they're not in the system, right? And if they're not in the system, there's nothing there for a creditor to determine your creditworthiness.
So it means for me to come and get credit, I have to go and get credit.
Yes.
Interesting.
Crazy, right?
It's crazy, but it's really nice because I think it's something that we can work on as well. Now let's go back home. Congratulations, you're a grandfather now.
Yes, I
Yeah,
am.
you came out and say I'm the grandfather.
Yeah, you saw the
Yes,
video.
I did see the video. And how did you feel being a grandfather?
I felt old, even though I'm not that old.
Yes,
So
I
it's
know,
kind of
right?
grandpa is supposed to be a very old person. And,
Wait, white beards.
exactly. But I'm still a young guy, right?
Yeah. Congratulations
Thank
to
you.
you. Is a boy or girl?
A girl.
A girl.
Yeah.
What's her name?
All girl, Zyla.
Zyla. So you are an all-girl man. So they say,
All girl.
"Blessed is who he's blessed is he amongst women," right?
Yes, sir.
And you have 4 girls, your wife, and your granddaughter, and you're always away. How do you manage? More recently.
Yeah.
How more recently? Like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
How are you able to manage all of that?
God bless my wife.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But to be fair, throughout my career, I've always been at home. My eldest is already over 25. My youngest is 17, right? So I think I would say myself and my wife, we've sacrificed everything for them. They're now older, so now this is a time for us to kind of pursue our respective careers, right? And that's the reason why I can kind of get away with it. But, there are conditions, right? I have to make all birthdays. I have to make all, any kind of family event I cannot miss.
So you have other companies. I know that you're opening something in Kenya and all of that. And you have this, I think, graduate employment thinking that you, or undergraduate, BBL, you said, yes. Well, how does that work? And can Nigerians benefit from that?
Oh, it's designed for Nigerians. So the BPO is ultimately, BPO stands for Business Process Outsourcing, right? So if you remember back in the day, India had loads of contact centers serving the rest of the world.
Yes.
It's ultimately that, right? And as you well know, there are a lot of talented people in Nigeria. That's the reason why they do very well when they go in the local country, right? So the idea is, why don't we create an opportunity for UK companies to tap into the talent source in Nigeria without the Nigerians actually traveling to the UK, right? So you don't have that brain drain, right? So we go out to the UK, US, and go to companies to say, look, if you're wanting an engineer, if you're wanting a doctor, because we have some doctors serving UK companies, if you want contact center, customer service, debt collectors, we can have them here, right? Operating from our office, serving you. Right? And technology allows us to do all those things. People working remotely, even in the UK and the US. So they could be working in Nigeria, being paid way more than their peers here, and they don't really need to kind of find a way to japa to a different country.
So I can, if I can define you, I think you're like a China phone. Like you can do everything.
No, I try.
Well, maybe very soon we'll hear that you've opened a mama put.
That's not a bad idea.
Oh my goodness! I thought he wasn't going to take that bait, right? All right, now let's. Can you share any success stories of individuals who have benefited from any of these companies, like things that you started, and any particular story that you hold very dear to your heart?
A lot of people. So, and most people eventually from our companies actually ended up jackbuying.
Oh my goodness, interesting.
Despite us trying to, but at least we were able to create them stable employment for them to do that.
Yeah.
But I think, at the moment we've got circa close to 100 staff.
100.
And that's from a company that started with around about 6, 7. The majority are women, right? So I'm pretty proud.
You came with it.
International, I'm like, yeah, we're nailing it.
Yeah.
We're actually doing something about it, right? So, I think collectively a lot of people benefit from what we want to do. And then there are the customers as well. We have a lot of customers that are grateful because of what we provide in terms of finance and how this changes the business. And those are the things I'm generally proud about.
Money in minutes, MIM. If there's one thing that the federal government can do, just one amongst a lot of other things, the first thing that comes to your mind that will make that business a little bit more easier to run and have the visibility that you want it to, what would that thing be? GSI.
The global standing instruction. That's a game changer. And it's actually a game changer also for all consumers, because imagine if creditors can now lend comfortably knowing that those that can't pay it but won't, you can get your money back, right? They're most likely going to be able to carry on doing so. They're most likely going to reduce interest rate as well, right? And it's going to change the game, right? There's no way we can solve this without credit. This I know for sure, right? One of the biggest problems we have about corruption has more to do with lack of credit as well, right? If you compare Nigeria with Western countries where people could have whatever kind of job, and if you want a fridge, you don't have to use all your salary to pay for it. You get a credit. You want a house, you can get a credit, right? And then you pay over a period of time. That doesn't exist in a country where you could say it's very cash and carry, right?
Yeah.
And that's what drives corruption, because people don't get paid that much, so they have to find a way to kind of fund those kind of expenses.
Now, they were talking the other day, and someone says the Igbo people don't like credit, except when they do business. So how, and you mentioned about your book as well, how do we get this education to everybody knowing that, look, there's a culture that understands that, look, I want to own whatever it is that I own. I do not want to borrow. How do we fix that?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. And I think everybody just needs to take responsibility, starting from corporates, right? Because we have access to all these people, we can kind of start educating them. Going back to your point about education from school, we need to change the curriculum. So many people, even where I come from, most people frown on credit as if it's a taboo, right, to borrow, right? It's a taboo to borrow for funeral. It's a taboo to borrow to do a party, but it's not taboo to borrow to do business, right? In fact, I'm actually sure Dangote, the richest black man, borrows.
Yes, he does for his refinery. We know how much he took. What's next for you?
I don't know. Whatever is in front of me, because I just don't.
Would you sell pure water?
I will potentially, if I can sell it cheaper and cleaner and solve a particular problem. Yeah, why not? I'll do anything.
Interesting.
Anything legal.
Anything legal. I think that's pretty interesting. For me, you love. You're an Arsenal fan.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
How did you find out?
I told you. I went and I snooped on you. I wanted to show you something. Let me see. Is this the whole family?
Yes, that's my whole family. Yeah. Apart from my granddaughter isn't there, but she wasn't born here. This was COVID.
She wasn't born. Yeah. Now, when I went through this picture, there was one thing that I noticed. I noticed that you're a very happy man, and maybe that's the reason you are able to achieve these things and make these, create new ideas and build on them. Don't worry, Mr. Producer, I'll send you the picture. You put it so people know what I saw. So they won't be like, what are they looking at? One advice for young people who have family and probably have to leave apart for business. How do you handle yours and how do you think other people can? I know it's not one shoe size fits all, but how do you do yours? Maybe it could help someone out there.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately just an understanding between you and your partner or you and your family. If there's a true understanding and trust, right? The rest is simple. So me and my wife, we, she knows what I'm doing. She knows why I'm doing it. And ultimately she knows I'm doing it for not just myself, but for my families and for my people. So I think it makes it easier.
Would you look at yourself and say, at least I've done a bit of what I believe I should have done?
Yeah, a bit.
What's the biggest picture for you?
I think for me, I want all these businesses to succeed significantly in terms of having serious impact, right? We are having impact, but not at the scale I want us to. There's a reason why I felt Nigeria was the right country to do this. It's a big economy. We could really make a huge difference. So I think when we get to that stage where we're issuing over 2 billion naira loans a day, that will make me smile.
I watched you on Channels. I think it was 2022, Channels Television. You were talking about, I think the money made from fintech had dropped, I think, by 30% from 2022 to 2023. And as much as Nigeria had more deals, we didn't have the big boys. What do you think could be the reason that is happening? Because at that point, it was Egypt that was one and Nigeria was like number 4.
Yeah.
What do you
it's probably worse now, but
yes, I think it's dropping more.
Yeah.
So what could be the problem?
It's simply if we can stabilize Naira, and I know for sure CBN are doing everything they can. Some good policies are there, but it's a big economy. This thing is not going to happen in a day. I get it, but that is what needs to be resolved from an external investor's standpoint, because they have to always be thinking about a return on the investment, right? And if you have all these factors that you have no control of, that's not stable, it's always difficult. People will not bring money in.
An advice for a young person out there who wants to come and start up a fintech in Nigeria, what is that one thing you'll tell them?
Be ready, right? Don't be open, right? We're doing almost everything, right? We've survived not because we stuck to just fintech. We have to do the BPO. We have to do Airbnb. We've got 7-8 properties that we do Airbnb. We have to do anything possible, and that's the only way, I think, to actually survive in an emerging economy, because there's just so many problems. But just do not put all your eggs in one basket.
All right, Nigerians, you heard, don't put all your basket in one egg, or don't put all your eggs in one basket. Whichever way you look at it, the most important thing is that there's an egg and there's the basket. Thank you so much for coming today. Hopefully we get to sit with you when Money in Minutes is counting in billions of dollars.
Yes,
and you're breaking all the barriers and you started making a lot of profit, because I know some fintechs are breaking that as well.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, thank you so much for watching us. We do appreciate you. It is important to understand finance. It's important to educate yourself on how money works. And just so you know, I didn't ask him, but we will write down here where to get these books in case you want to get it for your son, your daughter. It's a must-have. You see the situation of the country. We need to look for a way around that. Remember, my name is Jude Thomas Dawam. And today I have been sitting down here with a wonderful man. His name is George Badejo Adegbenga, and he is the CEO and founder of MIM, that's Money in Minutes. Remember, click the button down here, follow us, because you will not see an interview as good as this and as educative as this as well. See you in the next episode. Follow us on our social media platforms. On Instagram is at The Real Studio 93. Have a beautiful day.